guess I'm going to talk about two great Washington secrets here today. The first secret is the size of the means-tested welfare system. That's the anti-poverty system. Normally, people understand that Social Security and Medicare are gigantic programs, that they're too large, that they're going to grow very fast and bankrupt the country. What virtually no one in the United States is aware of is that Social Security and Medicare have a little cousin called welfare. And the reason, and for every dollar that's spent on Social Security and Medicare, we spend about 75 cents on cash, food, housing, and targeted social services for the poor. These programs are called means tested because they're available only to low-income people. And you never hear about this for two reasons. One is there are 70 of these programs. Every committee in the House and Senate has to have at least 2 welfare programs, okay? So the Ag Committee has welfare programs, the Education Committee has welfare programs, every committee, and they're split up, and you don't see the way that the left debates this. If you debate any one of these programs, for example, the school breakfast program, well, you will debate only that program, which costs about $2 billion. And the context of the debate is always that mean conservatives want to take this program away, and then children will starve and die. Okay. Now the reality is that any family that's getting assistance under the ridiculous school breakfast program, incidentally, has no benign effects whatsoever and appears to increase obesity. But other than that, let's put money into it. The only what you will never hear is that any family that's getting benefits under that is also getting benefits under probably 10 other programs, including Medicaid, food stamps, earned income tax credit, child care subsidies, and so forth and so on. And all together, the typical low-income family with children like that is getting over $25,000 a year in various types of assistance from the government, not including the free education, which we already give to their kids. You add that on top, you're probably looking at a tab for each family with children in the bottom third of the population of well over $40,000 of various goods and services that the government is giving to each of those families with children. You never hear about this because no one ever aggregates this spending and puts it together. The reality is, when you look at all the assistance to the poor, we've spent over $16 trillion on this assistance to the poor since the beginning of the war on poverty. By contrast, all the other wars in U.S. history, from the Revolutionary War to the present, cost about $4 trillion, okay? But $16 trillion, and that's not enough. Obama has jacked this spending up already by 40%. We are now approaching $1 trillion a year. And when challenged on that, the left will respond by saying, oh, well, of course, we're in a huge recession. We have to increase all this spending. That would be partially legitimate. But if you go to the back of Obama's budget books, which is what I'm paid to do, what you see is, miraculously, what's going to happen after the recession ends? Can anyone guess? Is the spending going to go down? No, it's going to go up even more. And that's very typical. When the public thinks about welfare spending or spending of the poor, they kind of think, oh, it's like a roller coaster. You have a recession, food stamp spending goes up, then the recession ends, spending comes back down. No, no, no. It never comes back down. It goes up, and then it goes up, and then it goes up. It's not a roller coaster, it's a mountain slope. Okay? And in fact, this spending has been the most rapid segment of government spending for over 3 decades. It has grown faster than Social Security and Medicare, and will probably continue to do so for the next decade. While no one knows the cost of welfare, the other great secret I wanted to talk about today, you know that liberals are concerned about poor people, right? Everybody understands that, right? The liberals want to reduce poverty. That is what they're not about building a bigger government. They're not about power. They're not about making people dependent on them. That is outrageous to suggest that. Okay, so we would know that since liberals are truly concerned about poverty, liberals would be questing, looking around for the strongest possible way to raise children up out of poverty, right? I mean, no doubt about this. Now, However, there's a big secret here. Because what's the #1 way to reduce child poverty in the United States today? A married father. Okay? A single mother in the United States has a poverty rate, and we have a chart that we handed this out. On average, about 30 to 40% of single mothers in the United States each year are poor. They have an income below the federal poverty level. However, if they are married to the father of the child, the poverty rate drops by down to around 6%, or an 80-some% drop. Find any government program that would do something like that, okay? And this is at no cost to the taxpayer. This is at savings to the taxpayer. Now you might say, oh, well, you know, maybe these are not exactly the same. Even if you standardized this and did it for families that are of the same race and of the same education level, you still get exactly the same results. And you can do this in every state in the United States. It's exactly the same. The #1 way to reduce child poverty in the United States would be to encourage these single mothers to actually be married to the father of the children, so the father's income went into the household. But this is a big secret. In fact, marriage is more effective in reducing poverty than education is. It's about the same if you wanted to look at the anti-poverty effect. The anti-poverty effect of any mother marrying, particularly the father of the child, is the equivalent of adding about 6 years of education onto her in terms of her growth of income and reduction of poverty. It's overwhelmingly a positive thing. But if you go into a low-income community, you will incessantly hear things like, oh, you must graduate from high school, you must go on to college, over and over and over again. What you would never hear in any school in the United States, never hear in any welfare office, never hear in any public service advertisement, never hear in any the speech of any politician, with very few exceptions, is if you want your child to escape from poverty, the #1 thing you should do is to be in a stable marriage before you start having children. Why? Because it's massively politically incorrect. There's nothing more politically incorrect than marriage between a man and a woman for the left. They believe it's a medieval institution that effectively should disappear. And as it disappears, that happens to produce what? Bigger government. Okay.
So yeah, we have a paper that should be coming out tomorrow in time for Labor Day. And this is a rather interesting Labor Day. It's the first Labor Day since the news came out that a majority of union members in the United States work for Uncle Sam. That figure came out in January from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. And for the first time in American history, you have more government union members than you have union members who work for the private sector. And this is it's a sea change in the union movement. The early trade unionists didn't think it made any sense to have government unions. Because what is the purpose of a union in their mind? We've got labor and you've got capital and you've got this conflict between the two, and they want the union to fight so that labor on the bargaining table gets a larger share of the income from a business. And it's all about redistributing profits to the union members. Well, whether you think that works or not, whether you think that's a good idea or not, that was their view of the union movement. The government has no profits. All that the union can bargain over in government is not profits, but we want a larger share of the tax dollars. We want more money from the taxpayers. So up until the mid-1950s, none of the labor laws even allowed for government unions to exist. But starting with Wisconsin in 1958, New York City in 1959, and then President Kennedy had an executive order for the federal government in '62, you saw this huge increase in collective bargaining in the government as the laws were changed in many states to allow it. Well, in the private sector, you've had competition, and unions tend to raise the cost of the companies they organize. They tend to fall behind, be less competitive. You can think about how Toyota has risen to be the world's largest automaker, and GM has fallen from that perch it enjoyed. Well, that's the story of pretty much the entire union movement, that unionized companies fall behind their non-union competitors. And so in the private sector, you've had union membership falling and falling and falling for years. They're now down to just 7% of the private sector. But in government, it's been at about 35–40% for the past generation, because in the government there is no competition. If you raise costs higher, it's not that if you're a taxpayer in California unless you're actually going to move to Texas, there's nothing you can do if the union raises the cost of government services. You can't say, all right, I'm not going to buy my police protection or my educational services from California anymore. You're stuck there. You don't have the choice of shopping the way consumers can with cars or with airlines or with various products. And so because you've got this insulation from competition, the government unions have been very successful in raising their compensation above that of private sector workers.
The last presentation highlighted some of these trend lines that we're seeing that really give us an indication of the threat that faces us with regard to the growth of government, of Leviathan. We have created a film, and I'm here as an executive producer for this film called I Want Your Money, that stays on a very focused track of discussing two competing visions of the American economy. One is championed by the current President, Obama. The other is championed by President Reagan in a duel of wit, animation, archival footage, etc. We are seeing experiences where literally theaters where we're filming, showing this film rather, are engaged in moments of yelling and laughing and cheering and so forth. It's really created quite an experience for those who've been part of it. To make, we kind of put a bracket from a fiscal conservatism point of view around the Bush years, go back to the Reagan years, since Obama is so preoccupied, of course, with the Bush record, so that we can create a clear contrast of competing economic visions. And the feedback that we're getting is that, that it's working.